My birthday had always been a simple affair. A small cake, a few heartfelt messages, maybe a quiet dinner. But this year, Mark wanted to do something different. "This is your night," he had said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. When I came home that evening, I was greeted by a beautifully decorated living room, a bottle of wine on the table, and my favorite candles lit. But he wasn't alone. Mark's best friend Ethan was there, someone who had been in our lives for years. Ethan was always charming and self-assured, but that night, his presence felt different. "Happy birthday, Evelyn," Mark exclaimed as he hugged me. Ethan, standing behind him, smiled in a way I hadn't noticed before. "Tonight is going to be special, Evelyn," he said warmly. His tone carried a mix of warmth and something heavier, something unspoken. I felt a strange shift in the air, but I brushed it off. The party began simply enough: dinner, wine, and conversation. Mark was his usual lively self, while Ethan was cheerful but observant. The glasses kept clinking, and as the alcohol flowed, the atmosphere became more relaxed. But Ethan's gaze, every time I caught him looking at me, it sent a jolt through me. At first I told myself it was my imagination, but as the evening wore on, the looks lingered too long to ignore. When Mark went to the kitchen to grab another bottle of wine, Ethan leaned in closer. "Evelyn," he said softly, his voice steady and confident, "you look absolutely stunning tonight." I glanced at him, unsure how to respond. I managed a nervous smile and tried to shift away. When Mark returned, the dynamic seemed to return to normal, but Ethan's presence lingered differently now. His eyes and subtle words seemed to carry a weight I couldn't explain. As the night wore on, Mark's fatigue became evident. "I'm going to rest a bit," he said, yawning. "But you two carry on. It's your night, Evelyn." With that, he left for the bedroom, leaving me alone with Ethan. For a moment, the room was quiet, filled only with the soft music playing in the background and the faint aroma of wine. Ethan raised his glass and moved closer. "Evelyn, talking to you has always been special, but tonight, it feels different," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "Ethan, maybe we should call it a night," I said, my voice trembling slightly. But he simply smiled, leaning in just enough to blur the boundaries between us. "Mark is a lucky man, but sometimes even the luckiest don't see everything," he whispered, his words hanging in the air like a forbidden invitation. The space between us disappeared. Alcohol, exhaustion, and emotions I had buried for too long collided. When Ethan's lips brushed mine, my thoughts stopped, and time seemed to freeze. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. The kiss was soft and hesitant at first, as if we were testing a line we both knew we shouldn't cross. But within seconds, the hesitation melted into fiery passion. Ethan's hands moved down my back, pulling me closer. My heart raced, and my breath quickened. Right and wrong no longer existed. I was entirely consumed by the moment. Ethan's touch erased every logical thought in my mind. My hands moved to his shoulders, feeling the strength beneath them. As his lips trailed down to my neck, I felt myself giving in completely, lost in the intoxicating pull of this forbidden desire. "Evelyn," he murmured, his voice deep and commanding. "Tonight is just ours." His words broke down any remaining defenses I had. Pressed gently against the wall, I felt the cold surface behind me and the warmth of Ethan's presence in front of me. His hands tightened around my waist as his lips found mine again, this time with more urgency. His breath was hot against my skin, and every whisper made my resolve crumble further. When the night ended, Ethan slowly pulled away. His eyes held a mix of guilt and triumph. Mark was still in his room, sound asleep, completely unaware of what had transpired. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, guilt and regret warred within me. The moment with Ethan had shattered my sense of control, but was it just a fleeting mistake, or the beginning of something far more complicated? Some nights leave a mark that lingers forever. This night would be my shadow to carry.